All right, welcome to the Creation to Cash Flow podcast. On this podcast, we discuss strategies to maximize your creativity and help you achieve financial freedom. We have a super exciting episode today because we have a guest. Mike, welcome to Creation to Cash Flow.
What's going on, guys?
To do a quick intro, Mike is the owner of Brands Me Creators that me and Michelle are super involved in Mike's company. Mike is a great mentor, great friend. We have all been working together for, I don't even know how long. How long? Almost 2 years, maybe?
Yes, sir. Something like that.
Yeah, it's definitely been a while. Mike, we are so excited about this episode. To give everyone the reason why, I mean, it's exciting anyway, but Mike is also on the cusp right now of making his millionth dollar in Brands Me Creators. It's sitting at like $999,000 right now, which means sometime in the next probably 24 hours, you will have processed $1 million in transactions. How does that feel, Mike?
Well, first off, maybe it'll happen while we're on the podcast. That would be kind of cool. Maybe I'll keep the tab open. But in all reality, it doesn't really mean much. Like, it's just like kind of a number on a dashboard. That's like really how it feels. To be honest. And like, Nick, you were actually the one that brought it up. You were like kind of like, oh, maybe this will happen like while we're in Costa Rica. And I was like, oh, I didn't even realize that. I didn't even think about it. Today's just like normal day, Wednesday, business as usual. So yeah, maybe not the answer you were expecting, but it truly doesn't feel like anything different.
That's interesting. In a way, it was what I was expecting because I knew like that we were going to Costa Rica this week. For anyone who's watching and listening, Mike is just in the room next to me right now. But anyway, I was the one that discovered this. I was like, Mike, are you even aware that you're about to make $1 million? Like, you're about to hit this incredible milestone? But it's true. I mean, I was kind of expecting that answer because I feel like most people say, like, I know I felt this way. I used to have a goal. I just wanted to make $10,000 in 1 month so bad. Like, I feel like that's every make money online kind of person's original goal. Hit $10,000 a month. And then like the minute I did it, I was like, okay, now I want to hit 20. And you just like, I didn't feel any different. People didn't throw me on their shoulder and like throw a party for me. I was like, yeah, I mean, in a way, it's a normal day. So I want to unpack that a little bit more because it is a massive milestone. How long have you, did you ever have a goal in your mind of like, I want to make $1 million. I want to do this. I want to do that?
The first big goal that always sticks out to me, kind of how you said yours is like make $10,000 or $10,000 a month. The one that sticks out to me wasn't necessarily attached to like an amount or a number, but I wanted to always have like fate in my own hands, right? I wanted to be my own boss and I wanted to be like responsible for my own income essentially, which is interesting because I feel like a lot of people have like that number in mind off the bat. But for me, it was like, how can I basically control my time and control what I do and control my own income? And so like that actually was the first main goal, even before like an actual like income target. It was like really about like freedom and like being my own boss and like controlling exactly what I got to do on a day-to-day.
I want to go deep around this story. Where were you and what was life like when you made that decision where you were like, I want fate to be in my hands, not someone else's?
Yeah. So 27, I went to college, got good grades growing up, graduated 2017 and got a job immediately working in New York City. Really good job, was kind of like the like dream job. Like it was like I was going down the path that I thought I wanted to go down. I was on like a data science team. A couple years out of college, I'm getting paid, 6 figures as like a 23-year-old kid. So that was kind of like the goal. And then once I got there, I was like, oh, I don't really want to do this forever. Cause you kind of look around and you're like, all right, well, this guy's been here for 15 years and like that's what he's still doing. Like, I don't really see that for me. So it got to this point where I realized like, all right, this was not the right path. And like, I needed a different route. And I always had like a little bit of like an entrepreneurial itch in me. But that was never really exercised too much like in college and just right after school. So then that's kind of when I went through like the side hustle phase where it was like, okay, I realized that like this corporate route is not for me, but I have no idea how to even begin with like becoming an entrepreneur. So like that's when that goal was really born of like, wow, I wish I didn't even have a number that I wanted to make. I just wish like I could create my own income and like I could control my own time, my own schedule. And like I even went into it knowing that like there's going to be ups and downs, but like I wanted to be the one that was responsible for that as opposed to someone else like telling me like when I had to come into work and those things. So yeah, probably like 2018 was the start of just like the side hustle phase, and just like every 3 months was like a new thing, right? It was like drop shipping, like Amazon FBA, I'm building chat bots, I'm doing this, Instagram theme pages, print on demand, like just running circles around like all these different little business models. So yeah, that was kind of the start of everything. And then I just went through that process for like a few years. And like when you go through it, you just think you're just failing and you just think like, oh, I suck. Like, why can I not figure this out? You're like, how do these other people do this? And like every time I do it, I just like run into a wall. But then once you're like out of that and you look back, what you really see is like, oh, actually, like, yeah, I was failing, but like I was picking up these little things along the way, right? I would do one thing and it'd be like, oh, I know how to do like sales call now. Like I just sold something to someone. Cool. That's like a new skill. Like, oh, I just grew like an Instagram account to like 10,000 followers. Like, oh, like that's a new skill. Like, oh, I built a website. Cool. That's a new skill. Like, oh, I did this. And then eventually you find something and you already have all of these skills and now you apply them to like this new vehicle and like, boom, it's finally that thing that breaks off. But like, it wasn't actually that thing the whole time. It was like you know, building all of these skill sets along the way. And for me at that time, this was COVID, 2020, like world shuts down, right? So I left New York. And so like a change of environment was also a big thing and kind of this like breaking through out of the corporate world. Left New York City, was like temporarily moved back into my mom's house. And at the time I was running Facebook ads. And I was running Facebook ads for like affiliate offers. And it was just like a very simple business model where, you know, if I could get $1,000 commission on this product, boom, I got to just, you know, CPA for less than 1,000, you know, maybe it cost me $500 to sell it. I make 1,000 and I'm just playing that game. And like, there's not much else involved, like pretty minimal complexity. It's just like running Facebook ads. So I started to make some money with that, enough. And also I was saving a lot of money at the time because I'm making a New York City salary living in my mom's basement. So like I saved up, you know, 6 months of expenses and was making a little bit of money with that and quit my job, moved to Mexico. And that's how it all started.
That's a really cool origin story, I have to say. Michelle, before we start like moving into now everything that it's grown, do you have anything you want to kind of unpack there?
I just love how all three of us are different when it comes to like, what was it that we were like looking for? What was our main goal? Because I know, Nick, you were like, I want to get out of my job. I need to make this amount of money to get out of my job. And so I can have my freedom and bask in the sun during the day and eat my fruit. Yes, you eat fruit and meat, right? Isn't that your thing?
A lot of those things, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's just interesting. It's so cool to hear this because I know we talk about brands make creators all the time. People have heard it if they've heard our other episodes. So it's cool that they can finally get to know the person that created that entire business.
It's pretty cool. Mike, what was the original idea? What did Brands Meet Creators start out as? And we should probably give people a little taste of what is it now. But let's go through that journey a little bit because it's been quite a journey. And I also want to preface and say that I met Mike because he was starting this group. He was starting a group of about 9 or 10 people. And you could pay to get in this group and you could learn about landing deals with brands. And how to navigate that whole world. And that whole world was new to me. At the time, I had more TikTok followers than the New York Yankees. They have since surpassed me, but I had them for a minute. And I was like, I don't know anything about brand deals though. And brands are contacting me. So Mike sent me a DM because I've been following him and like interacting with his content for a while. And he was like, hey, do you want to like maybe get on a call? I could kind of break down like how this works. And I was like, what does it cost? And he was like, it's going to be like a couple $1,000s to do it. And we didn't even get on a call. I was like, just send me the link. I was like, just send me the link. That sounds incredible. I'm going to join. And I joined, and that was how I met Mike. So I was learning from Mike a few years ago. And I wanted to just preface, that's how we met. Now we work together. Mike, you can take it away now and just start like, how did this evolve from there?
Yeah. So I'll actually go even like before that moment. Basically how everything started. Like for me, it's kind of like necessity and just like listening to the market, right? So back, I'm running Facebook ads for affiliate products. Basically that got to a point where it just like didn't really work much anymore, right? And like I just wasn't really making money with it. So it's like, all right, well, what's next? Like now I'm in this world of like I'm making my own income, and like now it's like, all right, you're swimming in the deep end, to like figure it out type of deal. And so that figure it out to me was just kind of assessing like, all right, what are my skills? What am I good at? Marketing, like that was my big strength at the time. Like, I was pretty good at Facebook ads, YouTube ads. I could build websites. I understood offers. So the, obvious thing for me is like, all right, let's, instead of just running these for affiliate offers, like let's try to run ads for businesses, right? Let's get a little agency going. And so that's where things started off. I got on TikTok and I just started talking about marketing on TikTok. And like me talking about marketing on TikTok actually got more traction than like the agency itself. I picked up a couple clients here and there, like not a lot at all, but just enough to kind of like get by living in Mexico type of deal. But what was actually really catching on was like the TikTok side of things. Like I was growing an audience, people were like super interested, and I just started to get more questions about TikTok in general, especially from like people that they wanted to grow on TikTok. Like I was making TikToks for the sole purpose of like trying to get clients to run like Facebook and YouTube ads. But like 9 out of 10 of my DMs were about TikTok. And so after probably 6 to 8 months of me like feeling like really frustrated with this agency, like it wasn't going anywhere, kind of just like listened to like what I was getting here. Whereas like everyone's asking about TikTok, like, all right, why don't I try to offer some type of TikTok service? And so that's where I started, was really helping brands to get onto TikTok. And so what we do is like the offer evolved over time, but eventually it just turned into, hey, I'll help you find a content creator or multiple. We'll help you build your page. We'll put the strategy together. We'll kind of manage the whole thing, kind of like a done for you TikTok service, right? And so that was like the inception of Brands Meet Creators. We were essentially a TikTok organic agency helping brands to get onto TikTok. That continued to grow. That eventually got to the point where was making some solid money from it, started to hire a team, took it to like, there were like 4 of us on the team. We probably had 15, 20 clients rolling. And it got to a point where like, I didn't really know how to like take it any further. It kind of felt like we like capped out there. Like I needed to like clone myself. 1, if I was going to grow it. 2, we also ran into this like kind of weird churn problem where we would basically do a great job of like finding the creator for the brand, putting the strategy in place, getting them off the ground, doing that for 3 to 4 months. But then it was like after 3 to 4 months, it was almost like, hey, like this was amazing. Thanks for setting this up. Like our creators are good. They're running with it. And it was like, we were just kind of this like extra piece that was there that like they were just paying our fee that they didn't really need. So we saw a lot of like churn after like 3 or 4 months, and it was never like bad churn. It was always like, thanks so much. We don't really need you guys anymore. You did great. See you later type of deal. And so the agency was running along fine. And then I started to notice something again from like just listening to the market. 9 out of 10 of our DMs were now content creators wanting to get the deals. It wasn't like a brand like, hey, help me find creators. Like, yeah, we still would get those. But the majority of our DMs were, hey, I have 200,000 followers on TikTok. Next time one of those brands come to you, hook me up. Or like, hey, like, what should I do? And so I just every time I would get those, I'd be like, sorry, man, I can't help you right now. Like super busy. Like we're doing this agency thing over here. I got nothing for creators. Like, sorry. And then I just started to turn that into like an email list. I was like, hey, just sign up for here. Next time I get a brand, I'll send it your way. So that's where like the Brands Meet Creators email list started to grow from. And then one day I was just like, all right, you know what? Like I get so many creators that are asking me, maybe I should just like put together some type of program or like see if I can help some content creators. And then, yeah, I sent out like an email to the super small email list at that time. I said, hey, DM me if you're interested. I got like 200 DMs. And then that's where like that initial program started, where it's like, instead of, hey, just being an agency, we're going to also show content creators how we're doing this, like what these brands want, what type of strategy they're looking for. And so, yeah, Nick, you were involved in that initial program. And then it's just kind of grown from there with literally this same kind of like feedback cycle of like, hey, what is the market telling us right now? Like, what do people need? Because the kind of like the methods and everything change over time. For example, right now, what we're really focused on in the academy is like, there's this big push of like TikTok shop. Why is that? It's not just because I was like, oh, like we should do TikTok shop. No, it's because like that's what's working really well right now. We're hearing a lot of questions about that, listening to the market. And it's like, okay, this is what we really have to focus on. This is what, like, if we want to provide the most value that we can, we have to kind of point people in this direction because this is what's working right now. And so, yeah, that's how it all started. And that's kind of how it's evolved to where it is now. It's just literally this feedback loop of just like listening to people, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. How can we improve on that? And just like continuing to update and make things better over time.
What a cool journey. That's literally the journey of pretty much like $0 to $1 million. And I love how much trial and error there is inside of there and how honest you are about that too. Like there's so many people that listen to this podcast or just on social media and they're trying something and it's failing and they want to quit. And it's so easy to just like, that voice is like, oh, you know, it'd be easy if you just stopped, if you just didn't do this. How many times along this journey from $0 to $1 million do you feel like you were being told and the signs were like, what if you just stop?
Yeah. I would say actually, like with Brands Meet Creators, that's never really been a thought for me, to be honest. It's never been like maybe I just like quit and like, because there's never really been like a backup plan, you know? Like, I mean, if there was, it wouldn't be like, go get a job. It would be like, oh, like I'm going to like spin it off and make like Creators Meet Brands or like something like, it would never be like, oh, quit. It would be like we're turning, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of the only, I guess doubts sometimes is like, it's more of like, oh, this isn't working. Not like, let's quit. It's like, oh, we just need to try something different. So I don't know, maybe I see it differently, but to kind of show some contrast there, before Brands Meet Creators, when I was still, you know, in the corporate world, there was a lot of like, okay, I did this for 2 months, nothing's happening here. Okay, let's throw this aside. Let's do something new. And like, yeah, I think there's a time and place for that where, you know, you have to go through some of those cycles to kind of pick up skills and like figure out what actually is going to work for you. But then, yeah, you get to a point where I guess you just get this like initial traction. And at least for me, it gets to the point where like, okay, there is no like turning back. Like we're on this path right now. And it's a matter of like, okay, maybe we got to make some little tweaks here, make some tweaks there, turn left and right. But there was never a thought of like, oh, like I'm going to quit. Like, for example, when we, you know, got the agency, when we were running the agency model, we got it to a good amount and I felt like I couldn't scale it anymore. It felt stale. It felt like it needed something new. There was never like, oh, I'm just going to like blow this up and like, we're going to quit. It was like, hey, I just need to like start testing like some new things and like, we'll figure it out. That's kind of where my mind has always been.
Yeah. We always say pivot. You got to pivot. And then the next step, you'll know when it's time because there's like friction. And then you're like, okay, it's time for a little bit of a shift. And it comes to you. You just have to make the decision to go for it. You know, it's all in the mind too. So I love that. I love that you're saying like you did that. You just pivoted. I do have a question. Mike, what is it? Are you I don't know the right word for it, but do you get joy from like solving problems or figuring things out? Like, is that what your thing is? Is that what you feel like fulfills you the most?
Yes, that is I don't know if it's like the number one thing, but that's a huge part of my, like, I don't even know if you want to say personality or like how my brain works. Like I love like solving puzzles and like that type of work. Like I'm a very like analytical person. I do love solving problems. I also love to just like live in the future almost, where it's like I'm trying to think like, okay, what is like step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and like boom, like project that out. What could that look like? Yeah, so I do get like a lot of joy from that. But also at the same time, like problems are never fun and they never go away. You know what I mean? I'm not just like, oh, I'm excited to like solve the problem today. It's just almost like a nature of like life and like running a business. Like it's just like a constant thing of like, okay, like there's a fire over here. We got to figure out how to put it out. Like, oh, this thing broke and like this thing had broke like 14 times. Like not only do we have to figure out how to fix it, but like we have to probably figure out like something different because that's not working anymore. And it's like this, yeah, that constant process of just solving problems. And some problems are more fun to solve than others. But yeah, to answer your question, Michelle, I would say that that is something that I do find joy in. Also, this is kind of a slightly separate topic, but I think it's really interesting to look at like your childhood and like the things that you liked doing as a child. For example, like a lot of things that I liked doing as a kid were these kind of like puzzle type games, like I always loved doing like Sudoku and like little stuff like that, puzzles and like building things. Like I was a big fan of any of those like online games that were like Zoo Tycoon, like you're building a whole zoo or whatever, roller coaster tycoon, like that kind of stuff. Would always like would love to build things, right? Like building forts in the backyard out of sticks. And so I think a lot of that kind of translates to where I'm at now, where maybe it would even be less so like solving issues and like solving problems and more like building stuff, right? And having an idea and then trying to like create that and like bring that thing to life.
Wow. I think that's beautiful because there's so many people that give up on their like childhood nature, and it's cool that you're able to do that now in the adult world and make money doing it.
I love that so much. I used to rip Zoo Tycoon and Roller Coaster Tycoon. Those games were
Me too.
They were insanely fun. It's interesting. I have not thought back to like my childhood all that much, and like how does that help in business? But a lot of the things you mentioned were like, yeah, that was me too. Like that was like I feel like most of the people in my life were not that into puzzles, but like I love a good puzzle. I love like a number game. I love things like that. So it's interesting that maybe that has a big influence on where business goes. What I want to ask now, because we talk so much about mindset on this podcast and just to other people, because I feel like this is just the most important area, and it's the area where people typically lack the most. Like you could have all the skills in the world, but if you don't believe in yourself and your ability to execute on them, you're not gonna be able to do anything with them. And when I joined that first like cohort of Brands Meet Creators, I noticed that, and I mentioned it to you just as a student. I was like, dude, everyone really struggles a lot with like their self-doubt here. Like there's amazing people here, and they just can't hype themselves up enough to believe in what they're doing and how far they've already come. And that was how our conversation kind of got started of like, these people could use a little bit of life coaching, I think. And that was how things started to evolve to the point where I was starting to get really active on these Q&As and eventually started hosting them and just chiming into other people, all these people that needed help with like self-development, so they could get themselves to a point where now they can let those ideas flow and they can go execute without having to negotiate their way out of it. So it's cool how things evolved like that. But what I want to ask you, Mike, actually before that, one more thing too. I kind of made a pivot as well because the market was telling me like more than life coaching. They were like, the market was telling me like, Nick, we want your business skills. Like, how are you making money doing this and your content and your things like that? And I was like, if this is what the people want, this is what they're going to get. So I also like that you mentioned like the pivots. I can relate heavy to that. But back to mindset, I want to know, what do you do to just keep your mind in the right place? Because you have you have a big business on your shoulders, and self-care becomes really important. So what kind of like habits, mindset things do you like to do?
Yeah. A couple things that come to mind, both from like some from the more like business like tactic side, and then some from more of almost like the like personal care side. So I think something that is important is to really understand yourself and like what you enjoy versus what you don't enjoy, right? So like what like really gives you energy and like what takes away energy. And so for me, a lot of what I like really like to do is like building stuff. And like, my ideal day is, I wake up in the morning, meditate, get a little personal time, and then like I'm going to the coffee shop and I'm throwing my headphones on, doing like deep, unbothered work for like 5 hours. And like that work could be I'm like writing like for our email list, or like I'm like building something new. Like that's like my ideal type of work. And so trying to find ways and surround yourself with a team that complements you in other areas. For example, I don't love hopping on like one-on-one coaching calls all day. Like if I'm like, oh, I got like 5 coaching calls today, it's not that I like dislike them. That's just not the thing that I'm like every day. Like I love doing this. You know what I mean? And so what's helpful is finding people like you two that are like, oh, like we're like coaches. Like we help people do this. Like for example, Nick, like I know you kind of get energy out of that from like talking to someone and like helping them through a problem. And like everyone has different things that they really like to do and that give them energy. So like I think that's one thing, is just identifying like what you really like to do. Now that's not for everyone, right? Especially early on, right? When you're just getting started, you can't really delegate stuff, and you're going to have to fight through everything basically. So yeah, I mean, just some other like small things I like to do. I'm like meditate every morning, every night. That's like a pretty strict habit of mine. Try to do like 30 minutes. And then I think also like scheduling is another like core habit of mine. Like every day, I show this all the time, but like every day I like to just literally write out like hour by hour of like what I'm doing in the day. And then that just helps to just clear my mind throughout the day of like, all right, I don't have to like think about what I'm doing. Like I already know what I'm doing because I planned it last night. And it's just like head down, boom, 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 boom. We're going through everything. So they're the 2 big things that stick out to me.
I love your list of like the hour by hour. And I think the reason I love it is because it's super effective, but like you don't even have like everyone thinks they need like the perfect Canva template to do it. And like you just have a notebook and you're just nice and messy. You're like 7, 8, 9, 10, and you just like block things out. And it's not about
literally the most important part isn't like the actual, like you said, like having like this crazy like Notion built out system. It's just like the consistency of it. And so like I have a lot of habits in my life that like aren't consistent, and I wish that they were, that you kind of like pick up and then they go away. Like this is one that I always reference because for some reason it's something that has just like last 3 years, it's been like almost like I there's not many days when I miss that, right? Sometimes if it's a day that's like, for example, vacation or whatever, even like a day like today, I don't have it like fully built out because we're in Costa Rica right now and we're just doing calls all day. So it's a little bit less, but like it's rare that I will miss that over the past like 3 years. So it's more of just like doing it, or like, yeah, just like committing to a habit than the actual like depth of it, right? It doesn't have to be some crazy built out Notion system to keep you organized. It's literally just like, all right, I'm gonna make a to-do list the night before, and I'm just gonna write out like what I'm doing the next day. And just that right there is so helpful for me.
Michelle, do you have anything like that?
Yes, I have to do the same thing. And it's not that it's because I know what I'm doing. It's just I get uber distracted, super, super distracted, and anything can throw me off course. And so for me, I have to block parts of my day out. I have to make sure that I'm staying on task and writing things down that are the most important. And so I have to do the same thing. And it's literally hour by hour. And there are times, like you said, Mike, like I'm out of town and I'll still block off some space to get stuff done. But then I know, okay, the rest of my day, I've done everything I need to do. I can now relax and not then be like, oh crap, I forgot to get to that thing. And so it's just really helpful to have a schedule like that.
The way that I do this is so different. I feel like I should maybe try that, but I'd make a list. Here's all the stuff. And then I'm like, the next day I'm like, okay, figure it out. You make it work in the day. So I just wanted to point that out, because also some people listening like might now be like, oh, I'm starting to block out the next day, but you do have to find what works for you to a degree. Like I used to try and time block. It helps to sometimes give myself like, all right, here's 4 hours. But then I just look at the list and I'm like, let's just see like what's the highest priority thing. I've talked about this before. I do those A, B, C, D, E lists. To me, that's the thing that works. I usually make one for the month and I'm like, here's all of my really important things for the month. And is this high priority? Is there no consequence if I don't do this? Can it be delegated? Or you'd be surprised how often like E, I just eliminate it. I'm like, this is not why. Why is this even on here? So that's super cool. I love deep diving into how you both do things, and I'm sure everyone listening does as well. Let me take a quick moment to remind you guys, if you have a guest or a certain topic that you guys want us to dive deeper on, you can go to creationtocashflow.com and you can leave us a 90-second voice recording, or you can just type something up if you're feeling a little shy. But leave us a voice recording. Tell us your first name, where you're from, and question is, and we can create a whole episode on that, because the reason we do this is not just for us to hear ourselves talk. We do it for you guys to listen, and it makes us so happy to see all the positive feedback lately. With that said, let's jump back. I have some more questions for you, Mike, but Michelle, do you have any that you want to ask? We're just dissecting Mike's brain today. It's pretty exciting.
Not yet. I know I gave you a few questions on Monday, so if I think of something along the way, I will raise my hand.
Okay, cool. All right, I have a good one then. Mike, what do you think is the biggest thing that allowed you to take this business from like $100,000 or $200,000 to something that at that moment would feel so far away, like 6 figures to 7 figures? That's a big difference, and that's a big journey. What do you feel like was the biggest or some of the biggest things that allowed you to hit that next level?
Great question. There's a couple things that come to mind. One is bringing on a team. So like you guys have been super important. We also have a couple other people on our team as well who have been super important. It just like allows you to focus on your zone of genius essentially, and like, yeah, just get help with some things that maybe you don't necessarily want on your plate, that you can focus on. Hey, this is my zone of genius. This is what I want to focus on. This is someone else's zone of genius. Boom, we're going to bring them in for this. That's one piece. Another piece that comes to mind is having systems in place where not everything is just like always reliant on you. So like there's going to be times when, let's just say your business is all run on you to create content, right? There's going to be times when you're just like burnt out and you just like, I just can't create content this month. And like, that's just, one example on the content side, but just having systems across the board where things are in place that things can just run, where, like this week we're in Costa Rica and like, it'll probably be a super light work week, but like, we're still going to have people join Brands Meet Creators and like stuff is still going to run because we have things moving in the background. The other one that really comes to mind is like our email list. That was probably one of the best things that I did, especially coming from like the creator world. I think it's something that's not really talked about as much, is like the power of creating an email list. That basically got us to a point where our email list right now kind of grows on autopilot, and like that's where we get the majority of our sales from. And that's something that allows me to kind of create content for the email list like once a week. I sit down on like a Sunday or whatever, write our emails, and we can have email sequences programmed out as long as we want. And it's something that, we fully own, right? We can't ever get like taken off of our email list like you can on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. So that was one of, when I look back at like all of like the big moments, just like the decision to start an email list and then be consistent with it for like 3 years has been, that's been monumental as well.
Those are exciting ones. Me and Michelle, by the way, anyone who's listening, we talked about building a team and when you need to, like, when is it time to add someone on your team. We did an episode on that recently. If anyone's like, oh, maybe that's something I should consider, you just go back a couple episodes, you'll see that. Also, thanks for the love. It's so fun and exciting, like, being part of this team. And to anyone who's like, the three of them, just like, they have a way about them. You guys can work with us if you're a content creator and you're looking to work with brands and you're looking to learn TikTok shop. You guys can be a part of this. It is super affordable to join Brands Meet Creators. We'll leave a link below so that you could take a trial of that, and you can get involved with all of us. Me and Michelle host these Q&A sessions for all of the creators, and it's just so cool, like, working with both of you and having these moments of, like, right now we're talking about what it's like, you know, you hit $1 billion like today-ish, maybe tomorrow, but like, who know, when are we doing the 2 million podcast? When are we doing the 5? Like, what are things going to look like then? What is the journey going to be like? And I just want to remind everyone that, like Mike said before, it's not the destination. It's not hitting that milestone. It's the journey to get there. That is the part that is so exciting. Like, when I just wanted to make $10,000, I didn't feel special at all when I did, but I so value, like, all of my time spent to get there. And my journal entries when I was like, oh my God, I made $250 this quarter. Like, what? I am so far away and I want to quit so bad. And there's zero chance that I will, because if I quit, it'll never happen. And it's just, the journey is everything. And this journey with you guys rocks so much. Let's just take a minute. Pretty cool.
Love that.
Go there. Yeah, please.
I agree, because I feel like I've known you guys for so long, especially Nick, because we're in these meetings like 8 calls at least per month, you know, with people, and then we do the podcast. But it's like, I cannot imagine not being a part of Brands Meet Creators now. Like, I cannot even imagine that. Like, what would my life even be? I don't even know, you know. And so I'm just so grateful for the both of you. Had to throw that out there.
I love it.
And I'm super grateful for you guys, because we as a company would not be anywhere near where we are without you guys. Because, like, I think what's really cool is, like, right now where I am, I'm able to really focus on, like, vision things. And like I said earlier, like, I really like to, like, live in the future almost. It's this weird thing where I love to, like, strategize out, like, all right, what are kind of like the next 6 months looking like? It's like, okay, we're going to do this thing, boom, 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 boom. And, like, you can't do that without having people on your team. Like, just like, I was on the Q&A today. I don't go to most of them, but, like, just seeing how you guys handle the Q&A is just so cool, and just, like, how excited everyone is on those calls. So yeah, we would not be anywhere where we are today without you guys.
It's so cool, and it's so important to find those people, not just in your life, but in your business or your professional life, wherever you want to apply it. Find those people that are like your perfect puzzle piece, where, like, not only, like, do, like, your energies match, but your skills too. Like, I like big picture things, and I love working with you, Mike, to sort out those big picture things and filter through those ideas. But what I really love, I love talking to people. I love talking to people. I could be absolutely dead tired, like 20 minutes of sleep, but, like, get me on a call with someone and I help them have a breakthrough, and I'm going to feel so damn good after. And, like, that's just my thing. It just is. That's why I wanted to start, like, being a life coach on social media, not knowing where that was going to take me. Like, I didn't know I was going to start working with brands, teaching people to work with brands, teaching people to build businesses. I was like, I had no clue. I kind of had, like, a tiny sense of it, because when I made my first logo, I let my mom pick it because I thought that would just always be special. Now I'm like, I can never change it. But anyway, I put, like, business and self-development in it, even though I was like, I have not made $1, but I just know. I was like, I am so committed right now. I will never quit. And I just know that, like, I have it in me to help people in their business, but I need to build one first before I could even start to think about telling someone else how to build one. And I don't know, it's just so cool to find your people that you can mesh with and build something amazing together. Like, we're in Costa Rica right now, Me and Michelle were talking about this. Me and Michelle have not met in person. This is me and Mike meeting for the first time in person. But I also feel like I practically feel like I grew up with you guys. Like you guys just lived down the street, and we've been doing this forever. And that's content creation. And if you're watching or listening to this and you don't make content, don't do it because you want to get followers or like I didn't want to be on camera ever until it started working. But it's just the doors it will open and the places it will take you. That's the cool part. And that's why we do the Creation to Cash Flow podcast, because your creations, they're going to turn into cash flow if you just keep going and you find your people and you work on your mindset. And just by listening, you guys are already doing a great job. Michelle, anything else that we should add, recap, anything?
Mike, as a leader, because you are a leader, what is it that you look for in people in a team?
Really good question. So first, I think it's going to, depend on the situation, or not necessarily the situation, but like the role that's being hired for. But I think what I look for above all else, and I can't even put a word on it, but like the ability to just like figure something out, right? Where it's like, okay, like, hey, like this is kind of what we need done. And there's a lot of people out there that'll like, they'll take the first step and be like, oh, but like, here's a problem here. It's like, okay, can you like get past that first problem? And like, you're probably going to run into another problem. Can you get past that second problem? And like, where it's just like, it just gets done. You know what I mean? Whereas now it's like, I don't really have to like even check in with you guys much. Cause I know like, oh, if there's like a Q&A issue or like something happens, it's like, okay, it's going to get figured out because like you guys are super smart and you have that, like that skill set where it's like, oh, something happens. Like, okay, cool. Like we just fix it. We just do this thing. And that's not everyone has that ability. And having that, at least with like my management style, like I'm very hands off. Like, you know, Nick said earlier, he's like, oh, I love getting on calls. Like I'm a people person. Like I'm more of like an introvert at heart, more of like a very hands off management skill set. And so I love to find people that can just take that and run with it. You know, they don't want to be micromanaged. They want like, hey, tell me like what the goal is, like what's the outcome that you want. And like, I'm just I'll get there. Right. And so that's what I look for when I hire someone, is the ability for me to give them like a concept and like a desired outcome and like, yeah, all the resources that they need, but they don't need like the hand holding along the way to make that happen.
So they're self-starters. They have tenacity. They are problem solvers. Okay. That's good.
Exactly.
Awesome.
I love that. We will get together for the next giant milestone and probably many times in between. If you guys love this episode, drop a rating, drop a review. They help us out so much. Share this podcast with a friend that you think would benefit. And like I said, if you're looking for a little taste of the three of us, you're a creator, you want to start making some more money, monetizing, working with brands, we'll leave a link below to do a trial in Brands Be Creators. You can check out Mike on Instagram. Are your Instagram and TikTok the same, Mike? You can plug those.
Mike_Rama7 on Instagram. Go there.
Perfect. And you can find Michelle at Michelle JH Michelle with 2 L's, 4 E's. You can find me at Get Ahead with Nick. Follow Creation to Cash Flow to see us actually record this podcast. And we'll see you guys next time.